baking soda and these things, you could see all the information sort of about this exploding ever more on the net, can't you? Sort of really quite considerable, actually.
I think so. I see a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, castor oil itself. But on the periodic chart, you've got these transitional elements in the middle, and on the one side you've got this middle of the chart. On the one side, on the right side, you've got a +1 and +2 sort of charged sort of molecules, and then you move into the middle, and you can go up to +10 of a charged molecule, in magnetron, quite extraordinary. And these transitional elements are so unusual, and they are responsible for an incredible array of, zero-point energy, which the body taps, and also to, the body can barely run without them. Most of us could have heard about micronutrient, but it's so important, matter of fact, that these elements, like these minerals, especially like what we're talking about, they have properties of semiconductive property and these sorts of things, extraordinary. And without it, the body hardly runs at all. In the 90s, it was just, that we started to consider monatomic element and what is a monatomic element itself and this sort of thing. And if somebody listens, to our work, you can understand that a mineral should be in an orthophilic state, and so it's got alchemical properties to be able to be transformed, and in particular, it's got atoms which are enzymatically linked versus, it's the atom isn't got any protein around it, and it's not enzymatically linked at all, but connected and enzymatically resistant to be able to be broken down. And so those are things which are more heavy metals and things. And so, for a mineral, an element, to be called an element, it has to have passed through life. And once it has, it's a different shape. That's one thing. It's more ovoid in its shape. Also, it's full of element which enzymatically more easily able to be transformed. And so it has properties of permittivity, which it has to have carbon or silica because it holds and can pass on a charge. And it's so that's called amphoterics. Permittivity. And amphoterics is its capacity to be able to be a south positive or a north negative or a neutral, depending on what's needed, and it can pull that sum out of itself to change itself, and that's amphoterics. And amphiphilics is its ability to be able to mix with water and oil and things. So only things which is enzymatic in itself can do that. And once enzyme is there, of course, in life, but that's what life begets life and death begets dead. But anyway, today it's possible for us to talk just a little bit about, lymphatics and circulation, and a bit more about where energy comes from and how, we've got molecules in our eyes which spin as a result of blue and red, light being balanced. We've talked about how forces impact DNA, and so, for instance, methylation is very small molecules of one of carbon and three hydrogen atoms being added to things of DNA so that it turns DNA on and off. And then we've got hydroxylation, which is breaking things down smaller than DNA down to RNA and smaller into a spore form and things. And so you've got these two forces, and you've got digestion, which helps support that. Otherwise, sticky mucus could have been there in the pancreas, and the plasma can have not been of having its proper density and things. where you see people or anyone, first it is, do they know that we're more monophasic, and what learnedness about this, because our body, throughout somatotyping, really has formed as a result of only eating once a day, more or less. You've got aerolife colloid, which have got magnetic qualities in the air, positive, in a room sort of pressure where things are and this sort of thing. And so you've got geomagnetics where anyone is, but in a quiet and in a calm, and having the ability to have forgiven and let people be where they are, and have supportiveness in life where family is and things and such. Those are things which can cause someone to really have a greater level of eye awareness, and achieve these things and model this more. We've talked in the program about DMT, about lambda waves, which is a bit above a second, and what takes longer than a second, that comes into epsilon wave formation and things, and how those flat waves really have an extreme gamma fast wave that comes off that, and a confluent of vibration happens as a result of it, and it charges up the cells of the brain and body. Life colloid in your intestine is the garden that you're wrapped around, and you're always got 26 grams of protein being formed there. Someone could be more aware of what this is. Blood is formed in the intestine, in the lamina propria, large cell, in the submucous mucosa there, through a process of aggregation, fusion, and differentiation. And that red blood corpuscle is got polypotency to be able to become anything needed in the body. You and I, providing that with really blood is clean, you have a really great albumin level in relation to globulins, which is proteins for immunity. So in a good, healthy life, you're really not bringing anything in that's causing mucus or anything. And then, you've got a whole range of things which are like clocks, of course, which we've been talking a bit about. You've got creatine clock you can look at. You've got you've got cholinesterase I can think of. You've got a whole range of other things like oxygen uptake and your grip strength and balance and endurance. And how much do you feel love in your life where you are? And is it all right that you know that some people in family may be not too loving and others really are, but it's like a blessing for you to be able to forgive and forget, and for all things to go on where things are. That's a better thing in a way to be. So you have proper brain function. Otherwise, the stress of all sorts of things where inner dialogue is, which is best to get rid of all inner dialogue, basically, and you have more of an inner quiet. And so you've got the nociceptive system, which is this septal region of the brain, and that's engaged where interest and pleasure is, and it stimulates whole brain patterning versus don't, won't, can't, should, try, but, must, only, never, always, always coming from more the amygdala as exclusionary, and and shutting down the frontal cortex, it would have, where aversion was. So it's an outward-lived meditation that somebody's more in an eye-aware state where emptiness is basic in your center, and then just simple care is. And so you're always sorting for agreement, and you focus on what this is because it's really much more common sense and common wisdom. But endogenous opiates and beta endorphins and enkephalins, dynorphins and endomorphins and things are all beautifully produced. And so somebody feels bliss, and primarily you feel bliss because you've got the capacity, you've realized, and you've gained this, and that's the ability to be able to have, quieten the mind down and cleared things away basically. But in this program today, it's sort of possible for us to talk a tiny bit about the eye and radio frequency energy and a radiant energetic dynamo. But for instance, like you've got molecules like lumichrome, for instance, which really does get a good spin going. And when it has with red and blue light, it really shows a greater increased capacity for cells to have respiration. I mean, it's linked with this. So light, we can see, is important, and the balance of light where anyone is, and also the balance of dark and light cycle to have health. And lights, for instance, should never be left on where someone is. That's a torture for anyone, basically. So, like in the prison system at the moment. So you could really have carbon dioxide that's saturated, like we talked a bit about around a seed, for instance, and you've got that humics and fulvics. And so before it's planted, you've really got something going on which causes it to have microzymal root growth ever more than anything else would have. So there's humics and fulvic acids is similar to light and quality of color and things in light and the way that light impacts us. And so you and I, in this story that we've been talking about, you've got a noble element, semiconductive field effect transfer that goes on from these transitional elements. And that's what's so important and the reason for product in Jubb cell rejuvenation, basically, and also vitamin L that's in our body. And to be able to have this H3O2 plus or minus water in our cells that gives us a voltage of energy just of itself. Some 40% of the energy that we get comes from this binding domain that's existing in the body. So when you're looking at what to do, you're thinking neoplastic condition is really tissue which is beyond the economy of the body, which should be there. And so, everything we're talking about is the ability to have autolysis, which is the breaking down of matter which is not meant to be there. And so you can see the study of autolysis, which is the breaking down of matter which is not meant to be there, because neoplasm is there's tissue beyond the economy of the body which should be there. So, those are things which engage a proton translocation. And so you've got insoluble collagen that's in the extracellular matrix where everything is, and that starts to be dissolved. And you've got a product like what we have is blue manna, which is the most incredible magnesium of its kind. You've got silica, another element within it, and it's fulvics and humics as it should be, where it comes from lithophil, and which are light element, light rock, and breaking down into life colloid. And so silica and magnesium all should be in its, like what we started to talk about in this program, orthophilic form, meaning straight with nature. And so because you can't get your minerals from licking rocks. And so being enzymatically active, you've got these transitional elements which actually absolutely are radical and act as a rectenna, like an antenna and rectifier, which especially non-polarized molecule is needed. And so that's in these aromatic amino acid, which also feature in our Jubb cell rejuvenation in the product and things that we have. And so it's needed, all of this, because you've got a noble element, semiconductive field effect transfer, like a NASFET system, which are frequencies of gamma waves, and you've got terrestrial and celestial magnicity, which is tapped and harvested. And so this is being harvested at the moment where you are in a resonant radiolytic sort of dynamo is going on. So as you can see, lumichrome spinning, for instance, because it's got its balanced light from blue and red. and you can see that it increases the capacity of cells to be able to have cell respiration. And so flavin molecules that are connected to element, which is like palladium, rhodium, osmium, and ruthenium, and these things, which is in the eye, and you can see that by fluorescent coming back off a black light that's looked into the eye. You can see the different colors and things, you see, corresponding to unique transitional element in that. And you can see how these cryptochrome really run, and you've got a B field, which is a static field, which is pumped up. And so from that, you've got an amplitude of energy can run from it. So you've got this noble element, semiconductor field effect transfer going on where the body is. And that's rectified, meaning from a on-off AC, it can become a DC, direct current, and become amplified. So in our body and with equipment that comes to be ever more, a bucking in one system is a bucking in the other system is a circuit which collects everything. I mean, that's what is going on in your eyes, you see. So a radiant energetic dynamo as a radio wave is, really quite receptive to colloid of light and via a T-junction. Are you still there, mate?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And that radio wave and energetics passes through an antenna more or less and energizes everything. So you have a transverse reticular magnetic energetics that comes off that. And so you really see a storage of energy, which a hydrogen that's got 3 molecules and 2 oxygen molecules, H3O2, which life water is, and it's a positive and negative and between that. And so it acts as an antenna and energy that passes from one to the other. You've got a voltage there, you see. And so you've got 3 different types of water in the way that water can mostly be seen. And we're talking about a cone-shaped type of water, which is really structured, and how these transitional elements, where that is as element in the water, really do assist to cause a radiant energetic dynamo to be there where water is. And so a helicopter really can fly, which have been created now, and it's all from this transmission. Only, of course, they've got a magnesium oxides instead of a noble element, but doing something similar, of course. So these ultra low frequency really is stored where water is, and H3O2, which is a gel-like state structured, has the most greatest capacity is to be able to store memory and has Gibbs-free energy within it. And so a voltage, like we're talking about, comes out of this static field, and the vestibular sense can sense the tonus and energetics that comes through and balances everything and directs energy in your sensory motor complex where things are. So life colloid, which the body is made up out of, an organelle are life colloid, and life colloid make up a cell, and you've got these noble element semiconductor field effect transfers going on, which is a capture of radiant energy, you see. So life water really helps where this is, and DNA and RNA really have a resonant frequency, for instance, these resonant frequencies, like 1.91 gigahertz is a resonant frequency of DNA and RNA. And so you've got different frequencies. You could see the various things which exist where something is. And so you've got like coils as part of this radiant energetic dynamo in your eyes. You've got like coils, and you've got a circuit which has got breaks within it, and where the coils are, you've got rods, and in these rods you've got disks, and these disks are stacked, and so plasma starts to get spinning really quite considerable in that from light. And so you've got this noble elements semiconductor field effect transfer going on. And today, of course, that equipment comes to be ever more with these metal oxide semiconductor field effect transfers, what is called a MOSFET. But waves where gamma waves are, where they could be tapped, you've got a transform of things which, like in our brain, a synaptic junction exists, and in that transform, superposition is existed, and this is broadcast more non-local, you see. And so it's a memory and a learning and a behavior of state specificity, and this is the structure, the system that's more or less used, to be able to, have memory and have energy and things like that. And so you've got a colloid of life, and you've got space between them, and this is called a T-junction, and cavity inside is of a resonance, and a resonant nature is conducted across space. And so, like a plane flying at 35,000 feet could rattle a window pane, and it is connected through a JC quanta, and it just impacted a particular dimension. For instance, like one window, it rattled that window as it went past, but it was flying around 35,000 feet away or something. But so cavity resonance is what's going on a microscopic level, and down there in a nano level, and direct current and dynamic current, and inside you've got a static B field, and there you have a JC quanta, which is a conductance of energy in the vacuum. And the T-junction between colloid of life can sense everything in the gigahertz range, and cavity space between colloid of life is really conductive resonance. And where life is, there's a confluent vibration which is emitted and primes more, for instance, in our body, oxidative metabolism, basically. And so, which is a healthy energy versus oxidate rather than aerobic glycolysis, which is more fermentive, where fat and protein is being broken down into a fermented state, and lactic acid is being produced because of it, and it's an inefficient sort of energy. A JC quanta, though, is the absorption rate, where in the B field, where a trajectory goes along in the A field, it is absorbed, and the quickness of which it's absorbed is 10 zillionth the speed of a light traveled in a meter, basically, as a JC quanta. So it's fast, you see, in the way that everything is absorbed. And there you have superposition being conducted on that level. And so it's non-local. So RNA is produced, and you've got these feedback enzymatic loops from RNA, which are sister cause or missing in any loop, which could be created, which is what came before or what came afterward. And so you've got these enzymatic feedback loop. You've got a high voltage evermore, because you've got a range of product which have dioxygenase molecules in it, like dioxygenase of chloride and dioxygenase of sulfur molecules and things, which is really gives you a much greater voltage on a micro level to be able to break heavy metals and plastic and things down to below the level of hydrogen. And so these are things which is going on, and for someone to be able to have good pancreatic function, you have to clear away stone, and to have learned about how to clear away stone and stop all the things which has caused that stone, which is really high methionine, and learning what's got high methionine in it: flesh and beans, and grain has too, but you'd be modest with grain, and high phosphate. Flesh and bean again has massive amounts of phosphate in it. So if you're more plant-based and you move away from bean as you can, you're going to be into a light food range where you're having a bit more of a focus of food being more enzymatic. And so, on this note, really, you've got an osmolytic pressure, haven't you, which passes through everything, an osmolytic light that can pass through things, and you've got an oncotic pressure, which is about -10 millibars of mercury, which is keeping things in the vessel. And you've got then a flow osmotic of pressure, where things are, to get flow through capillaries and things. And lumochrome, what we talked about just at the beginning of the program, spinning, of course, properly, because you've got your blue and your red light proper. And this increases cell rejuvenation, of course, and you've got a sterilizing ever more condition of the blood. And the rods in the eye are plasma spinning condensers, like we talked about, and they can be spinning over 10,000 revolutions a minute. And it's a veritable condenser of proton energy for the production of H3O2 in the body. And so this noble element, semiconductive field effect transfer, requires you to be able to have these micronutrients, especially Jubb's like white gold, which features in most of the work, which in the products and things is. But then I saw that these were things which were so missing, but once they were there in the blood, you have a glow that's incredible. And harvesting ambient radiation is really what's going on. And eating really didn't account for all the energy that somebody would actually have to have had. It just didn't add up. But when you look at this, you can see quite enormously that energy is really coming from zero input, basically, you see, because of the fifth dimensional structure that's set up with a NASFAT system that we have in our body. So everything really is supposed to be really beautifully balanced, and that stops all that neoplastic condition. And because you've got really beautiful enzymatic voltage in product and enzyme that you bring in, you're magnetizing everything more below hydrogen, like we said. And so you're clearing away material and things which will be very difficult to clear away otherwise. And so that does explain how prion even can be cleared away, and people can clear heavy metals and plastic and things that's like this. And so shouldn't it be that you're looking at what you're doing during the day and you're becoming more monophasic as you can? You're letting go all the flesh in the bean as much as what you could, and you're becoming even more plant-based. And so these transitional elements are so incredible in what they do. I mean, that's part of the reason why at the moment, I think in 2021 or something, rhodium was reached about $29,000 an ounce, and it's hovering around $5,500 an ounce right now. It's very expensive. That's an ounce, so it's like $282 a gram or something, you see. But it's so unbelievable. But this is actually what the body is in need of, and you could have heard others and people talking about semi and superconductive conditioning which goes on in nature, and how that impacts where the body is, you see, and consciousness itself. But the body really uses these enzymatic voltage and magnetizes what exists and takes it all below the level of hydrogen if that was needed. And south-positive magneton really is often missing in the modern blood. So it's very much more alkaline than what it should be. And it's really missing, like I said, the south-positive magneton, which feature good in the product, because those are things which is missing. And so you're really acting on the blood and the body. Really, you've got it like a transistor and diode, and you've got north negative carrier substance, and chloride and carbon and bicarbonate is where we focus our energy. Because why? Because most people have cystic fibrosis, transfer regulative gene dysfunction, because it's been knocked out. Because where did you get aromatic amino acid in your food? And there's three. and they feature big in the program also. And so as you put these things back, you've really got a membrane that actually really starts to function properly. Otherwise, you've got mucus ever being formed more, and you've got sticky mucus in the pancreas. And how do you get anything like good plasma to flow without, cleaning away the stone and everything that's in the pancreas? So memory and everything that you have really is activated far more, because you're really able to trigger identity and pick up patterns ever more, where needed recognition is in behaviour. You've got better cognition, you see. So you've got the faculty to inspire creative influence of the future really comes about because you've got this static B field in your body and an A field whereas the trajectory of things is going on is absorbed. And what's the pattern of things? Is this congruent? Is it associated? Are you more integrated where everything is? And do you know the meaning of this? Because if you focus on these three things, that's something which everyone should, because you're living more in the moment ever more. Magnophoresis is really happening because you've got vitamin L, which only that triggers a body to be able to absorb hydrogen and triggering the cell and activating a cell to get anything to happen. And that's the reason why it's so vital in the major feature in colostrum and our human breast milk, because it has this NASFAT system where a current really is needed, and the septal and the septum pellicidum, which we've talked a bit about, which is this window, gorgeous, sensitive to very small tag differentials, which can sense just like an exclusion zone does, and it's very superconductive and light generator, which feeds the septum ventricle, and all light and gamma wave sensitivity is directed in a current which drives the body along with the heart. And so you've got a rhythmic generator of a PQRST complex, which happens, and all is fed beautifully by this a high energy north negative magneton, you see. But can you have that if your blood doesn't have a south positive in it? No, it's not going to carry any north negatives. You don't have that force. Did it happen because you're over-breathing? Probably. Is it happen because you're just eating food and it's caused the raising of somatostatin and that stopped your pancreas and stopped your tummy from being able to empty properly? Wouldn't it be good to learn a bit more about that by checking out some of the other talks which we've had about cystic fibrosis? But anyway, the dark and light phase really is very important, and you've got an energy reversal where things are going on, where a spin really is of the body, and in a dark phase, which is really natural conditioning, you've got an ethmoid organ, which is in the frontal plate bones of your skull, which is extremely magnosensitive. So you've got T junctions, which we're talking about the cavity resonance, which is a resonance of a hydrogen atom, which is the finest memory water has, and that's H3O2, you see. So it performs a hexagonal lattice-like structure, and if you add a boron molecule, like an atom in there, it's going to make five-sided structure, and suddenly you've got tubular structure, which forms. And so you've got vascular life colloid, we talk about, called mucorracematosis, which makes vascular organs. And then you've got a connective tissue form, which is comes from Streptococcus niger. These two life colloid pretty much are organisms, as major organisms that make up a body, basically, you see. And so we're supposed to have aerobic life colloid and that live within the cell and assist, generally cause energy to come from oxygen and proper use of it. And it's otherwise we've got that which we just talked about. There's an augmentative energy of what is a primary energy system that we have, which is this NASFAT system, that these noble elements and everything that can give someone, you see. Yeah. What do you got as a question at this moment, man? Anything at all?
Well, I'm sure I could think of something. Um, Pertaining to what we're the topic of today's um, topic. Let's see here.
Well, radiant energetic dynamo, we've been talking about, and how element is in our body, which causes us to be able to tap energy. And this explains more right in this day than what people could have thought about. You've got clean blood, and you've got blood flow, and if you've got good digestive conditioning, then you're going to have good lymphatics. You're going to have good lymphatics, and you're going to have blood flow into the lymphatics. And so this is how blood gets to flow, but it starts to become clean because somebody realizes, oh, I've got to make sure that my digestive system is in good stead, and then the lymphatics, and then the microcirculation, and things can become better. But how much is it that somebody is at peace where things are, and how much is it that you've got to focus on what's positive more where things are? And somebody's ever more blessed. Clean lymph cause to be flowing because you've got a hemisynchronization, and you've got a greater amplitude of energy that's flowing. And so the micro vacuum pressure where things are has sort of got a beautiful toroidal shape in a magnetic plasma. And degrees of freedom where somebody is in the plasma, there you've got an influenced condition of what's in the blood, what did you eat, have you had a quiet breath where the inspiration is more through your nose. And so you're organizing this toroidal north-south pole, neutral magneton, or where plasma state is, life colloid adapt to run an oxidative metabolism where it's able to produce 38 adenosine triphosphate molecules. Otherwise, it's only 2 adenosine triphosphate molecules and lactic acid, which then comes to ferment, and this is neoplasm, you see. So turning it around, it's really a great thing you can look into, Jubb cell rejuvenation. So I would not give up where hope has been lost until you've really looked into Jubb cell rejuvenation. So you've got a molecule in the product which is hormone like glucagon, which functions so important just like insulin does. And what would it be if you've been eating more than you should, and you don't have a monophasic diet, and the pancreas has never been given a rest, which it's supposed to, and so now you can have autolysis of the breaking down of matter, which is not meant to be there, but before that point, it's not. So oncotics pressure is, like we said, is -10, and it's sort of holding things in the blood, in the vessel, and you've got a hydrostatic magneton pressure in the capillary where blood flow is, and you've got a beautiful state of an osmotic state of H3O2 gel, and a flow of energy between positive and negative of this gel, of this water, and functioning as a noble element, semiconductive field effect transfer and collection of energy. So a voltage of energy just comes about because where the water is of your body. And so it's a hydromagnetic pressure where the capillaries are, and you've really got osmotic and oncotic conditioning of that capillary, and smaller units beyond larger protein really comes to be drawn in more oncotic pressure and pulled into the very tiny and smaller spaces, and getting cell respiration and things to go on. Osmotics is really at a certain point of an equilibrium, and you've got an anti-osmotic condition going on from fats and protein eaten in excess, and from foodstuffs where the stomach doesn't empty. So why didn't it empty? Because you ate too late, and when you close your eyes, your stomach closed too. And do you know that happens, you see? So colloidal osmotic pressures is supposed to be proper, otherwise acids and water gets between the abdominal space where it shouldn't be, and people feel stuffed. And this is really, slow but sure, sort of the condition of neoplasm itself if it's not corrected. And so the capillaries and the interstitial fluid really is pulling and pushing back, and you've got an arterial side, and you've got a hill behind that's a north negative, and a huge trough in front, which is a south positive, and you've got a surfing going on, like red blood corpuscles are surfing this plasma and moving through the red blood cells, red blood vessels, and that's flowing without a heart having formed before a heart was formed in embryology. And so you can see the flow happening as a result of this, and you've got a venous greater lymphatics, which actually draws everything into itself. And you've got something blocked like microplastics, mold, fungus and yeast from protein and fat not broken down, and heavy metal and things, colloid from dead salt and what have you. And those are things which is mountains or can be having blocked and stopped things, but having cleared away on Jubb cell rejuvenation, you really are jumping up and down and remembering to do that. Even if you were 90, you can have care to start to learn how to jump up and down, but also that you're spinning and things, you're actually really causing a clearing away of prion where that would have been where balance is, and you're actually keeping your balance where things are. And so you're having a fitness where everything is. And so you've got otherwise like kidney types of conditions and bags around people's eyes, which if you just had a little bit of castor oil before bed, that's going to just work wonders and clear away Alzheimer's within 7 days. And it clears away depression and things that's like that, because when somebody really isn't able to remember things much, or they can really only have a focus on things negatively, they're not all one. And how do you keeping yourself company inside? So kidney forced nephrotic sort of syndromes and protein falls into the urine where it shouldn't, and plasma protein shouldn't be there, including albumin or globulin in the urine. But it's most important to keep an oncotic pressure to pull fluid to the capillary so edema isn't. And isn't it actually what goes on where the loss of life is sort of edema starts to come to be, because you've got that salt metacolloid build up, and then because you've got less albumin to be able to move it around, suddenly you've got a decreased oncotic pressure like it's supposed to be, should be. It's changed. You've got a swelling, you've got edema, and now you've got brain pressure, migraine, all sorts of things. Which is just an indication ever more what can be going on where the organs are. So the vertebrae arterial go, and you've got carotid artery, and you've got the exterior of the brain, but blood vessels coming up and making a circle, what's called circle of Willis. And so all this polar completedness where a duality is, and magnetron on the JC quanta really is conducting energy, so your body is really flowing beautifully, and you've got a lengthening of the inspiration through your nose, and you're quietening your breath down and building carbon, because you have to have 7% carbon in your body for smooth muscle dilation and things to work properly. And so as you're present, ever more and more omnipresent, you've really got a great fluctuation which is used and added up. And that residuum is a JC quanta fluctuation, and you've got a state of a thermal equilibrium as a result of this, and it averages out the quantities of everything. And so providing that you've really got like a stability where everything is, you've got basically the longer life. Otherwise, a strange attractor really is going on, and some chaos is got an indeterministic condition about it, and the quanta of a small difference, that's all it needs to be. That could be pop because you're listening to the program. It's a greater difference as time passes it would have been, and it acts like a butterfly effect. And so what was chaotic and unpredictable, suddenly you've got a law of nature that's ever more deterministic and could predict the future. It's all of a sudden, that's no longer not predictable, but chaos really could have changed everything in the chord, where underneath an underlying rules have come to be that shape things as a strange attractor. So an example could be just like you're thinking, well, what happens when somebody's got a gambling paradigm, yet, if you look at it, well, gosh, the house is going to win 80% of the time, it's only going to give you 20. But all games are set up to have something unpredictable, and a small change where that is in that chaotic system is all that someone could see an order of, and, oh, wow, I think I could maybe crack the jackpot where this is. But it's like a sourdough bread, the very small change that anything goes on where that is, the changes can all have a predictive effect. And just the same as a noble element, semiconductive field effect transfer goes on, and you've got a transitional noble element that causes this to come to be. And it's an incredible thing that we live in a day which you can start to become more aware of energy being tapped from the vacuum. And that's a good example is Chikumbutsu's car. The butterfly effect really, like what this program is about evermore, it's sort of like small changes go on where a condition is, and you can read it. And so just for instance, Lukey, you could just grow up where the bush is, and, you'd be learned, of course, and suddenly you'd just be able to see everything, sort of like spider webs that are starting to be built ever more before the winter, and it straight away could tell you, we're going to have a really cold winter. You see, a JC quanta really is able to make prediction, and common law is ever more deterministic in the way that a strange attractor is existing, and it's small claims where things are just, you could see this going on, and those small differences assist to cause you to be able to see the bigger picture, and that see something that's been redacted from the political position, for instance, that something is behind the scene governing everything and controlling everything, like everything else is just like a black and white checkerboard, and things shifted around on it. And isn't it that the conversation that people should be having? Yes, it is, because that's the very forces which need to be corrected where anything is, and then you're going to have proper relation and things. But language where things are sort of more of a stability, you're going to have what's random otherwise, and suddenly out of that you could have this which is non-random, and all particles are ever more lined up as a JC quanta. And you've got a diamagnetic plane, which we'll be talking about in the JC quanta, which is 10 zillionths faster than the light passing through a meter of space, you see. So a third of a circle, you've got three particles, haven't you? You've got a positive, a negative, and a neutral. We've got will where we are, and can we have access to our frontal cortex, all of us? And can you imagine the richness of putting everybody's frontal cortex together ever more? And don't you think that actually your pocketbook is better spent where you've got positive economic inductance instead of negative economic inductance? That's outside a nation, you see? So these things all should be corrected, shouldn't it be? Because you've got to be able to manage what's internal, otherwise everything external just takes over where things are, doesn't it? But you have to make sure that information is proper where anyone is. And so magnetic gamma wave really is what we've been talking about here, and is conducting a maximal charge that helps fluctuate everything. And you're coming about because you've got this polarity between H3O2 positive and negative, you see. And this is an E field, and a T junction goes on like, which is a conductive resonance from the space. And so you've got communication going across tissue, and that is broadcast, you see. So a brilliance really is had where you've got palladium, for instance, and you can look in your eyes and you can see that you've got palladium in there, rhodium, osminium, and ruthenium. And this vector really causes a T-junction characteristics, which is this a half-wave dipole with a signal of a north negative build-up and collapse. And so you've got a conducted wave pattern as a result of this, you see. And so, you know, this is sort of coming into a new day where you've got good digestive function, you've got proper pancreatic function, you've got a clearing away of all the fibrin and things, which enzymes can help break that down. You stop all the onslaught that cause somatostatin to be, which is eating more than once a day and then only having eaten complex carbs and heavy protein, which triggers somatostatin, and that shuts the stomach and pancreas down. So habits and things that people could have had, all of these things become corrected the ever more that you jump into, you know, Jubb cell rejuvenation working. But anyway, radio giga frequencies really are converted to energy. That's what we'll be talking about. Sonic vibration really in silica. Everybody knows it ever causes more piezo-magnetic dynamic current. And then this is how the pyramids work for energy generation. You've got a necessary driven amp frequency and an instance of high frequency amps. And for instance, like on Chikumbutsu's design, you've got aluminium plate. Of course, you've got metal oxide that makes a MOSFET instead of a NESFET. But it's a MOSFET, it's the same, but it's a rapidly switching circuit on and off. And an amperage that comes about, it's available from that. And a transformer then steps up or steps it down, and it creates a frequency-based amperage in a closed loop. So you've got 50 hertz reused or charged back to a battery frequency, which unlocks everything. And an amperage of a high frequency is in this MOSFET system, you know, that's come about in Chikumbutsu's design and other sort of MOSFET systems, which people could look and see. You've got these conditions which high leverage of harnessing of energy is, and now you've got sodium-ion batteries technology. Sodium is so abundant and it's so easy to, you know, have clean energy. So you've got 500% greater capacity for current energy where batteries are, and you've got a system which really doesn't rely upon batteries anymore much. You see, and so sodium vanadium phosphate really is used to maximize efficiency, and north negative flow comes to be extremely abundant ever more where energy is. So economies in the past that's just been owned by a criminal banking cartel of a one world order have been behind all the wars which you could see going on in the past. And it's all because some negative inductiveness is, which we the people should take back where this is. And a currency should be positively inducted. And you're voting in the art of the way that you're living your life by what we spend things on. And your opinion then comes to be public policy, where you and I come to be part of everything again, which these program and everything that we've been talking about, you know, relates to. So clean energy and everything. So a nation's corpse, which is owned by this criminal banking cartel of a one world order, is really your birth certificate and then what the money mechanics is behind things. And so the news is always just at a corporate level, down at an ankle level, really. And this heartfelt message that is all about you and I and our rights that we have is really what's been redacted. And so this is more the voice coming from the people, you see. And so we the people really need to become active in more in Article 3 and Article 4 court, which is a bit more about the work which we do. But anyway, we've been talking about how micronutrients are and how you're able to tap into a transient energy as a result. and how a zeta potential has to be where nutrient is, meaning that it can't be cooked out too much because then it doesn't have the zeta potential around it. And involuntary body fluids, where people cannot be continent with urine and feces and things, muscle and nerve control could have been weakened, and magnesium and manganese and all these unique elements are so important, and this can heal damaged pelvic muscles and weakness like that, and help bring back nerve force where nerve loss was for urinary bladder inflammation and this sort of thing. You've got where older people and younger people are urgencies to urinate and these sorts of things, and incontinence. And if you go on a Jubb cell rejuvenation, you see a lot of this all get cleared up because histamine and life hydrate and these sorts of things really use, and bring in a little bit of anabolic steroid. You've got digest aid and got evacuees and product that's like this. You're bringing in B7 and B9 because you're bringing in ever more live food. You're learning the value of castor oil and lemon bicarb shots and apple cider vinegar bicarb shots and things. And so it's extraordinary. There's a program there that you could look into, Jubb cell rejuvenation, and I'm sure you shouldn't ever give up, until you really learn more about Jubb cell rejuvenation, that's for sure. And so I guess we've just been talking about your body. It's like an antenna. Graphene oxide interferes with that, and so does heavy metals, which shouldn't be there. Your body's acting as an antenna and a frequency which is transmitted across space of your body, is conducted and adjacent quanta, and you've got a capacity and resistance going on, and each is of a source acting sort of as a resonance in real time. And so you've got a constant temperature which is supposed to be kept, in a gas which is supposed to be constant relative. And so now you've got the absence of, you see. So a symmetry that you've got where you've got noble elements, you've got these transitional elements which we start to talk about today a little. You've got a sensitivity to hydrogen and things which is below that, and an economy of energy which comes about because you picked up a copy of Jubb cell rejuvenation and you learned how to get on with things, and you made what this work is ever more personalized to yourself. And so a superposition really is a waveform that's longitudinal scalar wave, and light is really bent more by some material to the right and bent more to the left, and things as in nature. And shouldn't we be bringing things that come from nature more? And so it's hard to ignore any fact, of course, which somebody could have only gone with a doctor and have a daily false condition about things. But waking up to the things we're just talking about here, the news ever more, you've got a commercial narrative otherwise, which would have been swaying you in another way. And yet we've been just talking about a cavity space. We've got a flux condenser here. You've got energy production we've just talked about from these noble elements, semiconductive field effect transfer. And that life hydrate gives you this H3O2 positive and negative held charge. And this allows you to have a hydrodynamic magnetic pressure, Luke. And this gives capillary the force, and brain and pancreas to function. And you've got to get rid of cystic fibrosis, which is sticky mucus. And, if you, just add in that it's nice to be able to jump up and down a little bit. And when was the last time that you broke into a trot? A lot of these people, can't remember the last time they actually, broke into a trot or even rolled around on the floor, you see. So chaos, where it isn't that you've got this great flexibility, is really indeterministic, where you've got a random chaoticness, yet you've got this non-randomness that can come about and appear out of that random background. And these programs, I hope, actually can help bring more out about this. Anyway, you've got the translocation of proton where the pancreas is. You've got enzymes which will come in and break that excessive fibrin down, and then so the pancreas then again can function properly. Yeah. So I think the most important thing would be for most everyone to really learn that things are very variable more, and at any age, like even 90, someone could build back their body and have a good fitness. And so one thing for sure, money really used to be we would have, but it wasn't credit. But now since 1933 and the March 9, it turned into credit, and we've got this criminal banking cartel of one world system, which most everybody could have read about a bit more with Jekyll Island. And it got the chief advisors ever more to the president back then, which is today the same thing. You've got a criminal banking cartel of a one world order, which got their own groupthink and take on constitutional currency, which has been taken away, you see, and gold was made illegal, remember, and it's not a dangerous substance, but it was made illegal, so dangerous it was a base, you see. Yet the fiat notes that's come about from a fractional reserve banking and someone from afar controlling the purse string where a nation is, and that no, these nations have their own control over things. You see, these are things which is the money mechanics, and coming to understand how energy from no input exists, you see. So what's redeemable, where anyone is, where truth is, and time, of course, it's really otherwise a dangerous life to be living where you're not focused on what could be proper, have proper lawful money, where things are, what's going to go on where everyone is a buyer of stock yet there's no seller, or offloading of all the stock and being sold off, and tariffs really acting as war because the housing market is such in a large recession, of course, and 2025 crash otherwise has existed for sure, set up, and it's residential housing speculation has sort of gone on. And isn't this sort of really like, you've got too many bikers all came into town and Ma and Pa can't maybe get to the supermarket, and shouldn't there be some assistance where that is basic? But you've got a high-end market no longer really for use much, and high-end properties also crash, of course, at this moment, and you've got a pile-up of inventory, which is a stagflate, and 80% falls, all of this sort of plummeting, isn't it, in a worldwide sort of BlackRock swoop up, sort of like in 1994, ordering all sorts of things, you see. So anyway, I think a great truth is, shouldn't we be focused on what's been redacted? And I think that's an interesting thing. What's missing in the whole picture is people's conversation about money mechanics, and even also how come, it doesn't get the notice. I mean, Chicken Boots' car that he's invented in Zimbabwe. Anyway, mate, hope everybody's having a really great day as we've had this program today. We've really just run around a little bit, haven't we? But we did talk about radio frequency, radiant energetic dynamo, and how lumochrome is a molecule which really gets spinning because you've got your red and blue light balanced, yes, and becoming ever more monophasic with the things that you do, giving your pancreas a rest, being able to stimulate autolysis by bringing in molecule which has its enzymatic function, getting rid of debris from the intestine and improving the lymph to get proper blood flow. And you've got this noble element semiconductive field effect transfer, which is going on because of the structured water and things that we have, and structure of that we have in our body. And so, I think it's sort of really great for people to conceptualize how epigenetic function is going on, and live foods versus dead food. Throw these things into the picture rather than, oh, someone said I should do this or I should do that. What about the law of exogenous enzyme, the preservation of these enzymes, you see? And where do you hear people talking a bit about these things? Anyway, mate, hope you're having a really great day as you recording this show, and that everybody's listening, having a really good day as they are. And really looking forward to catching up to you in a future show, mate. Yeah. Love you, mate.